The morning sun painted golden streaks across the hospital corridor as William sat quietly beside Kate's bed. 3 months had passed since the accident, and today marked a turning point neither of them wanted to face. The doctors had delivered their final verdict with clinical precision, leaving no room for hope or denial. Kate's fingers traced the edge of her blanket, a habit she had developed during these long weeks of recovery. Her once vibrant eyes now held a distant quality, as if she was already preparing to let go of the life they had built together. The silence between them spoke volumes, filled with 22 years of shared memories, laughter, and dreams that would remain forever unfinished. William watched her profile against the pale hospital walls, memorizing every detail. The way her hair caught the morning light, how she unconsciously bit her lower lip when deep in thought, the gentle rise and fall of her breathing. These moments had become precious to him, knowing each one brought them closer to an inevitable farewell. Satay's wedding ring on Kate's finger caught a ray of sunlight, sending tiny rainbows dancing across the white sheets. William remembered the day he placed it there, how her hands trembled with excitement rather than the weakness that now consumed her. They had promised each other forever, but forever had turned out to be far shorter than either imagined. A nurse entered quietly, checking Kate's chart with professional efficiency. She offered a sympathetic smile to William, who had become a permanent fixture in the room. The staff knew their story now, how the young couple had been planning their dream, home when fate intervened so cruelly. Everyone in the ward had grown fond of them, witnessing their quiet dignity in the face of insurmountable odds. Kate turned her head slowly toward William, her movements deliberate and careful. She wanted to say so many things, to apologize for leaving him alone, to tell him how grateful she felt for every moment they had shared. Instead, she simply reached out her hand, and he took it without hesitation, their fingers intertwining with familiar comfort. The afternoon stretched ahead of them, filled with unspoken words and gentle touches. William had taken indefinite leave from his job at the architecture firm, unable to focus on building futures when his own was crumbling. Kate had been an elementary school teacher, beloved by her students and colleagues who sent cards and flowers that now filled every corner of the small room. As evening approached, William helped Kate sit up against her pillows, adjusting them carefully behind her back. She had lost significant weight, making her appear fragile and ethereal. Yet her spirit remained strong, her love for him undimmed by the shadow of approaching loss. They sat together watching the sunset through the window, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. The night nurse arrived for the evening shift, bringing Kate's medications and a warm smile. She had become particularly attached to the couple, often staying a few extra minutes to chat or simply sit with them. Tonight, she sensed something different in the air, an electricity of change that made her move more quietly around the room. William arranged the pillows one more time, ensuring Kate was comfortable for the night. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, difficult conversations with family members, and decisions that no young person should ever have to make. But tonight, they simply existed together in their bubble of shared love and understanding. Kate's breathing grew deeper and more regular, as sleep began to claim her. William settled into his usual chair beside the bed, pulling a thin blanket over his shoulders. He had spent countless nights this way, watching over her, listening to the rhythmic beeping of machines that had become the soundtrack of their new reality. The hospital grew quiet around them, with only the occasional footstep of staff members making their rounds. William closed his eyes but knew sleep would elude him once again. His mind wandered to their early days together when Kate would fall asleep in his arms during movie nights, her head nestled against his shoulder. Those simple moments now seemed like treasures beyond measure. The next morning brought visitors, though Kate had specifically requested only family. Her parents arrived first, her mother clutching a small photo album filled with childhood memories. They had driven through the night from their home, Trilai, hours away, unable to sleep, knowing their daughter's time was growing short. William stepped into the hallway to give the family privacy, leaning against the cool wall as emotions threatened to overwhelm him. He could hear Kate's soft voice through the door, reassuring her parents that she was at peace with her decision. The strength she showed in comforting others while facing her own mortality amazed him daily. Dr. Martinez approached William with a gentle expression, carrying the paperwork that would make Kate's wishes official. They had discussed this moment many times, but the reality felt surreal. William signed where indicated, his hand shaking slightly as he gave legal consent to help the woman he loved end her suffering with dignity. Kate's younger sister, Emma, arrived around noon, her eyes red, from crying during the long flight from California. She had always looked up to Kate, and watching her big sister face death with such composure left her feeling lost and admiring simultaneously. Emma brought letters from Kate's former students, colorful drawings expressing their love and gratitude for their favorite teacher. The afternoon passed slowly as Kate spent individual time with each family member. William watched from the doorway as she held her mother's hand, speaking in hushed tones about taking care of her father and remembering to water the garden they had planted together last spring. These intimate moments between Kate and her loved ones created a tapestry of farewell that was both heartbreaking and beautiful. When evening came, Kate asked everyone to leave except William. She wanted these final hours to belong to them alone, to say goodbye in the privacy they had always cherished. Her family understood, though leaving proved difficult for everyone involved. Promises were made to check on William in the coming weeks, invitations extended for holidays he might not feel ready to attend. Alone again, William and Kate settled into their familiar routine. He read to her from their favorite book, a collection of poetry they had discovered during their honeymoon in Ireland. Her eyes remained closed as his voice filled the quiet room, but her slight smile told him she was listening, absorbing every word into her memory. The night nurse stopped by to check Kate's comfort levels and administer medication for any pain. She had cared for many patients in similar situations, but something about William and Kate's love story had touched her deeply. Their grace under such devastating circumstances reminded her why she had chosen nursing as her calling. Kate opened, her eyes as the medications took effect, looking directly at William with a clarity that surprised him. She wanted to tell him about her dreams lately, how she often found herself in their old apartment, cooking breakfast while he got ready for work. In these dreams, everything was normal again, and they had endless time stretching ahead of them. Instead, she asked him to tell her about the house they had been planning before the accident. William's voice grew animated as he described the bay window in the kitchen where she would have grown herbs, the reading nook by the fireplace where they planned to spend winter evenings. These shared visions of an impossible future brought them both comfort and pain. The conversation gradually shifted to their past, remembering their first date at the small Italian restaurant downtown. Kate had been nervous and spilled red wine on her white dress, but William had laughed and spilled his too, making her feel at ease immediately. They talked about their first fight, their first vacation together, the night he proposed under the stars at their favorite camping spot. As midnight approached, Kate began to feel drowsy again. William helped her get comfortable, adjusting the bed to the perfect angle and ensuring her favorite stuffed animal, a small elephant from their first Valentine's Day together, was within reach. These small acts of care had become sacred rituals in their new reality. William settled back into his chair, pulling out the journal he had been keeping throughout Kate's illness. Writing had become his way of processing the impossible situation, recording their daily moments so that someday he might be able to look back and remember not just the sadness, but also the profound love that had sustained them through these darkest days. Dawn arrived with unexpected gentleness, casting soft shadows across the hospital room where William and Kate had shared their last normal night together. Kate woke feeling surprisingly alert, as if her body was gathering its remaining strength for the difficult day ahead. William noticed the change immediately. The way her eyes seemed brighter despite everything they were facing. The morning routine felt different today, weighted with significance. William helped Kate with her breakfast, though she managed only a few bites of toast and some sips of tea. Every movement felt deliberate, precious, as if they were both acutely aware that this might be their final shared meal. The simple act of William buttering her toast took on an almost ceremonial quality. Dr. Martinez arrived earlier than usual, carrying the compassionate authority that comes with years of helping families through impossible decisions. Kate had made her choice weeks ago, but today the reality would unfold. The medical team would ensure her comfort while honoring her wish to avoid prolonged suffering when her condition inevitably worsened. Kate asked William to call her parents and Emma, wanting them present for a final goodbye. While he made the difficult phone calls, Kate stared out the window at the hospital garden where patients and families often sought moments of peace. She watched an elderly man feeding pigeons on a bench, his gentle movements reminding her that life continues even in places touched by death. Her family arrived within the hour, having stayed overnight at a nearby hotel. The reunion was tender but strained, everyone trying to be strong while crumbling inside. Kate's mother brought the wedding dress Kate had worn just 2 years ago, carefully preserved in tissue paper. She wanted Kate to have something beautiful from their happiest day. Emma sat on the edge of the hospital bed, carefully braiding Kate's hair the way she had done when they were children. Their father stood quietly by the window, overwhelmed by watching his eldest daughter prepare to leave them. These intimate family moments created a cocoon of love around Kate, reminding her of all the relationships that had shaped her life. Around noon, Kate asked for time alone with each person individually. She started with her father, taking his weathered hands in her small ones and thanking him for teaching her to be brave. Their conversation was brief but profound, filled with shared memories of camping trips and bedtime stories that had given her the courage to face this final challenge. With her mother, Kate spoke about recipes and holiday traditions, asking her to continue making the special Christmas cookies they had always baked together. She wanted these family customs to survive her absence, creating connections between her memory and future celebrations. Her mother promised through tears to carry on every tradition, keeping Kate's spirit alive in their family gatherings. Emma proved the most difficult goodbye, as Kate worried about her younger sister handling the grief alone so far from home. They talked about Emma's new job and her relationship with David, normal topics that provided brief respite from the weight of farewell. Kate made Emma promise to be happy, to not let this tragedy define her entire future. When the family conversations ended, William and Kate found themselves alone again as evening shadows lengthened across the room. The day had been emotionally exhausting for everyone, but particularly draining for Kate, who had given pieces of herself to each loved one while preparing for her own departure from their lives. William opened a bottle of Kate's favorite perfume, the scent she had worn on their wedding day. He sprayed a small amount on her pillow, wanting her to be surrounded by familiar comforts. The fragrance filled the small space with memories of happier times, dance floors and dinner dates when the future seemed unlimited. They spent the evening, looking through photo albums, pausing at pictures from their honeymoon in Ireland, where they had been caught in a sudden rainstorm and took shelter in a small pub. The locals had insisted they stay for traditional music and dancing, and a stranger had captured them laughing together, completely soaked but radiantly happy. Kate asked William to play their wedding song on his phone, and they slow danced beside her hospital bed, her thin arms around his neck while he supported most of her weight. The moment was both heartbreakingly sad and transcendently beautiful, a final dance between two people whose love had deepened rather than diminished in the face of unimaginable loss. As the night grew later, Kate began to show signs of fatigue. That concerned the medical staff. Her breathing became more labored, and she needed additional medication for comfort. William helped her settle back into bed, arranging the pillows and blankets with the practiced care he had developed over these long months. The morning of Kate's final day arrived with unusual stillness, as if the world itself was holding its breath. William had barely slept, spending most of the night watching Kate's peaceful face in the dim light from the hallway. She looked younger, somehow, free from the lines of pain that had marked her features in recent weeks. Kate woke around 7, immediately reaching for William's hand with surprising strength. She had dreamed of their old apartment again, but this time the dream felt different, more like a memory being carefully filed away rather than an escape from reality. She squeezed his fingers, drawing comfort from his familiar touch. The medical team arrived to make their final preparations, speaking in hushed, respectful tones as they ensured Kate's comfort for the hours ahead. Dr. Martinez explained the process once more, though they had discussed it many times. Kate listened with remarkable composure, asking practical questions about timing and William's well-being afterward. Kate's family gathered in the room, creating a circle of love around her bed. Her mother had brought fresh flowers from their garden at home, bright yellow daffodils that had been Kate's favorite since childhood. The familiar scent filled the sterile room with memories of spring mornings and Easter egg hunts from years past. Around midday, Kate asked William to read from their wedding vows, which she had kept in a small frame beside her bed. His voice trembled as he spoke the words they had written to each other, promises about facing whatever challenges life might bring together. The irony was not lost on either of them, but somehow the vows still felt true and meaningful. As the afternoon progressed, Kate's energy began to fade noticeably. She dozed frequently, waking to find familiar faces surrounding her with love and gentle conversation. Emma held one hand while William held the other, creating an unbroken chain of connection that seemed to anchor Kate to their shared love even as her body grew weaker. Kate's father read from their family Bible, choosing passages about peace and eternal rest that had comforted their family for generations. His deep voice provided a soothing background to the quiet conversations happening around Kate's bed, creating an atmosphere of sacred farewell that felt both heartbreaking and somehow appropriate. The evening nurse arrived with a special arrangement of Kate's favorite flowers, roses in soft pink that reminded everyone of her wedding bouquet. The staff had grown genuinely fond of Kate and William, and many stopped by during their shifts to offer quiet words of support and admiration for the couple's grace during such an impossible time. As sunset approached, Kate asked her family to leave her alone with William for their final private moments together. The goodbyes were tearful but surprisingly peaceful, with Kate managing to smile and whisper personal messages to each family member. Her mother was the last to leave, kissing Kate's forehead and whispering prayers for peaceful rest. Alone at last, William and Kate settled into the intimate quiet they had always shared. She asked him to tell her once more about the house they had planned, and he described every room in loving detail, from the kitchen where she would have grown herbs to the study where he would have worked on architectural drawings while she graded papers nearby. Kate spoke softly about her hopes for William's future, urging him to eventually find happiness again, even though she knew those words were premature. She wanted him to travel to the places they had planned to visit together, to pursue the dreams they had shared, to honor their love by continuing to live fully, even in her absence. The medical team returned as evening deepened, making their final preparations with professional discretion. Kate remained alert and peaceful, surrounded by flowers, photographs, and the tangible evidence of a life lived with meaning despite its brevity. William held her hand constantly now, their fingers intertwined in the familiar pattern that had sustained them through countless moments of joy and sorrow. As the hours passed, Kate's breathing gradually became more peaceful and regular. The medications ensured her complete comfort while allowing her to remain present for these precious final moments with William. They spoke in whispers now, sharing memories and expressing gratitude for the years they had been given together. Around midnight, Kate asked William to promise her something important. She wanted him to remember their happiness more than their grief, to think of their love as a gift rather than a loss. Her voice was growing fainter, but her eyes remained clear and focused on his face, memorizing his features for whatever journey lay ahead. The final hours moved with gentle inevitability, like a river flowing toward the sea. Kate drifted in and out of peaceful sleep, while William maintained his constant vigil beside her bed. Each time she opened her eyes, she found his face there, steady and loving, providing an anchor of comfort in the growing stillness. Around 3 a.m, Kate woke with unusual clarity, as if some internal light had brightened one last time. She looked at William with eyes that seemed to see everything, all their shared years compressed into this single moment of recognition and gratitude. She whispered his name, and he leaned close to hear her final words. She told him about a dream she had been having recently, where they were both old and gray, sitting on the porch of the house they never got to build. In the dream, they had lived a full lifetime together, raised children who grew up to have children of their own, celebrated countless anniversaries, and weathered every storm as partners. The dream felt so real that sometimes she forgot it wasn't their actual future. William listened to every word, treasuring this last gift of her imagination and love. He told her that somewhere, in some other version of their story, they were living that dream right now. Perhaps they were sitting on that porch at this very moment, watching their grandchildren play in the yard while the sun set behind the mountains they had always wanted to see together. As dawn approached, Kate's breathing became shallower and more peaceful. The medical staff checked on her regularly, ensuring her complete comfort while giving William and Kate the privacy they needed for these sacred moments. The room felt suspended outside normal time, existing in its own gentle bubble of farewell. Kate asked William to open the window, wanting to hear the birds singing their morning songs one final time. The cool air carried the scent of spring flowers from the hospital garden, mixing with the roses her father had brought yesterday. She smiled as a cardinal landed on the windowsill, its bright red feathers brilliant against the pale morning sky. William began to hum their wedding song softly, the melody filling the quiet space between them. Kate's face relaxed into complete peace as she listened, her breathing synchronizing with the gentle rhythm of the tune that had marked the beginning of their married life. Her hand in his grew lighter, as if she was already beginning to let go. The sun rose slowly outside their window, painting the room in soft gold and pink light that seemed to wrap around Kate like a warm embrace. William continued humming, occasionally, whispering words of love and gratitude for the years they had shared. He told her about all the ways she had made his life better, how her laughter had been his favorite sound in the world. Around 8 a.m, Kate opened her eyes one final time and looked directly at William. Without speaking, they shared a moment of complete understanding, a silent communication that transcended words. She squeezed his hand with surprising strength, and he squeezed back, sealing their love with this final gesture of connection. Kate closed her eyes again, a peaceful smile playing at the corners of her mouth, as if she was seeing something beautiful beyond William's vision. Her breathing gradually slowed and became barely perceptible, each breath a quiet farewell to the life they had built together and the love that would survive her physical departure. William continued holding her hand, singing softly and telling, her how much she meant to him. He described the cardinal still sitting on the windowsill, how the morning light was turning her hair golden, how beautiful she looked in this moment of transition. His voice remained steady and loving, creating a bridge of words to carry her gently into whatever came next. The moment of Kate's passing arrived with such gentleness that William almost missed it. Her breathing simply stopped, her face remaining peaceful and relaxed as if she had merely fallen into the deepest, most restful sleep of her life. The cardinal outside the window sang once more, a clear, sweet note that seemed to mark the end of one story and the beginning of another. William sat quietly with Kate for a long time after she was gone, still holding her hand and watching the morning light play across her serene features. The medical staff respected his need for this private time, allowing him to say his own silent goodbye in the peaceful room where they had spent their final precious hours together. The days following Kate's peaceful departure passed in a blur of arrangements and conversations that William navigated as if moving through deep water. Her family stayed close, providing support while respecting his need for space to process the profound change in his life. The funeral home handled everything with quiet dignity, understanding that this young couple's story had touched everyone who witnessed their final months together. Kate's memorial service took place in the small church where they had been married, filled with flowers and attended by hundreds of people whose lives she had touched. Her former students created a display of drawings and letters, each one expressing how Mrs. Kate had made learning fun and helped them believe in themselves. William spoke briefly about Kate's love of life and teaching, his voice steady despite the grief that threatened to overwhelm him. After the service, people shared memories that painted a picture of Kate as someone who had lived fully despite her brief time on Earth. Colleagues talked about her infectious laughter in the faculty room. Neighbors mentioned how she always remembered to ask about their children, and former students described the way she made each of them feel special and capable of achieving their dreams. William returned to their apartment alone for the first time, surrounded by reminders of the life they had built together. Kate's coffee mug still sat in the sink from that final morning before her last trip to the hospital. Her books remained scattered on the coffee table, bookmarked at pages she would never finish reading. These everyday objects now carried the weight of memory and loss. In the weeks that followed, William discovered that grief was not the overwhelming darkness he had expected, but rather a complex mixture of pain and gratitude that changed texture daily. Some mornings he woke forgetting Kate was gone, reaching across the bed for her warmth. Other days he felt her presence so strongly that he caught himself saving funny stories to tell her when she came home. Kate's parents visited regularly, and they found comfort in sharing memories and supporting each other through the adjustment to life without her vibrant presence. Her mother brought Kate's recipe collection, carefully handwritten on index cards, wanting William to have these tangible pieces of the woman they all loved. They cooked Kate's favorite meals together, finding that the familiar recipes created connections to happier times. 3 months after Kate's death, William received an unexpected package. The return address showed Kate's school, and inside he found a memory book created by her students and colleagues. Each page contained photos, drawings, and written tributes to their beloved teacher. The principal had included a note explaining that Kate's classroom had been renamed in her honor, ensuring future students would learn about kindness and perseverance. William began visiting the hospital garden where Kate had looked out during her final weeks. He found the bench where the elderly man fed pigeons and discovered that sitting there brought him a sense of peace he could find nowhere else. The staff recognized him and often stopped to chat, sharing their own memories of Kate's grace and strength during her illness. As spring turned to summer, William started taking walks through the neighborhood where he and Kate had planned to buy their dream house. He found himself stopping in front of homes with bay windows and reading nooks, imagining the life they might have built there. These visits were bittersweet, but somehow necessary, a way of honoring their shared dreams even though they could never become reality. Emma called regularly from California, checking on William's well-being and sharing updates about her life. She had decided to pursue teaching, inspired by Kate's love of education and her impact on young minds. These conversations provided William with a sense of ongoing connection to Kate through the family members who continued to love and remember her. One evening, William sat down to read the journal he had kept during Kate's illness, revisiting the daily observations and feelings he had recorded. He was surprised to find that along with the pain and sadness, the pages also contained evidence of profound love, unexpected moments of joy, and a relationship that had deepened rather than diminished in the face of impossible circumstances. As autumn approached, William made a decision that felt both frightening and necessary. He enrolled in evening classes to become a certified counselor, wanting to help other families navigate similar challenges. Kate's strength during her illness had taught him about resilience and grace under pressure, qualities he hoped to share with others facing their own impossible situations. The cardinal that had sung outside Kate's hospital window began appearing regularly in the tree outside William's apartment. Whether it was the same bird or just coincidence, William chose to see it as a gentle reminder that love continues even when physical presence ends. He would watch the bright red bird each morning, feeling connected to Kate through this small miracle of nature's persistence and beauty.